Hi guys, welcome back to the Bars Cars YouTube channel. On this video, we're going to cover the ultimate cooling upgrades for a GMT 900 truck. So in this video, we're going to cover what it's going to take to upgrade your cooling system, bring it up to a higher standard, keep your engine cool. So the first thing we're going to talk about in that is going to be thermostat. So I'm in the middle of doing the 6.2 engine swap, and while we have everything apart, we're going to be doing some upgrades to the cooling system. One of my complaints with the 5.3 was that it tends to run a little bit warm. I was seeing it basically holding around 205 to 212 degrees, even just cruising flat ground, towing a load. Now, that's not the end of the world. It's at no detriment to the engine. It's not going to hurt anything holding it there. But the one thing that I didn't like is just everything gets really heat soaked. Intake air temperatures were getting a little bit high because of all that heat in the cooling stack being blown back onto the intake and the tubing, and it just made the truck a little bit lazy. So one thing we're going to cover is how to have some better thermal management. This thing already runs cooler than what a stock one did because I have already done some tuning and adjusted the fan temps in it and brought them down to a much more manageable level. I can't remember exactly, but the stock fan temperatures don't kick into high until somewhere in the 220s, I believe, which is entirely too hot in my opinion. So the first thing that we're going to be covering here is a thermostat. So what I have here in this box is, there's several other places to get it, but I chose to go to Lingenfelter and get a colder thermostat. So here's the part number and everything. So this is a 174 degree thermostat. So these thermostats is not like what it was like in the old days if you were used to doing small block, big block Chevy, stuff like that, where you had basically three typical temperatures. 195 would have been a stock one. 180 would have been a decent upgrade for your average kind of daily driven hot rod towing vehicle, stuff like that, help it run a little cooler. And then if you had like a, you know, muscle car or something like that, something that was a performance vehicle, you could go down to a 160. Part of the advantage when it comes to running this engine a little bit colder is, this has been proven on some dyno stuff before, but colder combustion chambers tend to have less of a high pressure area because of that high temperature. Tends to allow a little bit more air in, which tends to help it make a little more power. Other benefit to this is you gain some threshold for detonation. So if you run this thing a little bit cooler, you keep that cylinder head a little bit cooler, you keep the block and the piston and everything, those cooler temperatures tend to be less spark knock prone. So you've gained a little bit, not saying it makes a huge difference, but it does help some in the department of knock retard and stuff like that. So we're going to make this a little bit safer as far as the tune-up goes. It's going to be less knock prone. It's going to make a little bit more power. It's just going to be safer overall. And it's also going to not feel as heat soaked as I had mentioned earlier when we're towing with it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this stock thermostat out and we're going to swap it. And then I will get into phase 2 of the cooling system upgrades, at least for the engine cooling system. So I got the old thermostat out here, give you a side to side. One on the left here is that new Lingenfelter. This is the used original one out of the water pump here. Very simple swap, 2 bolts, pop it out of there. Give this a quick cleanup before we go back together. But I should mention here that what the original temperature of this thermostat is. So this is in Celsius, 86 degrees Celsius. If you convert that over for us typical people that is used to looking at Fahrenheit, this is a 187 degree thermostat. So a little bit of an odd temperature rating. Like I said, not your typical 160, 180. They do make 160s for these, but I feel that's a little too cold for a daily driver application actually. You run into situations where you don't actually get the oil hot enough or get the engine hot enough that you tend to have shortened oil life and stuff like that. Running an engine very cold can cause it to not go into the correct fueling maps in the ECU, and it'll run very rich. So we don't want that, but we can get it where we would a little bit closer to where we would want it to be, just dropping 10 or so degrees, a little more than that, going to this 174, and we'll be able to adjust some fan temperatures as well to help this thing run a little cooler. Alright, so I got the new one in here. Did a light cleanup with a little bit of a scotch pad there. Just knock some of the corrosion stuff off. There is a little locking alignment tab, I should say, on the rubber seal. Make sure you put that in right so that gets this air bleeder in the right place right here. So now we can just go ahead and bolt that back on the water pump, and that'll cover item number 1 on our cooling system upgrade. So adding to our ultimate cooling upgrades, I already talked to you about a colder thermostat. We've already put that in, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to refer to as the poor man's four-corner cooling upgrade. So what I'm referring to there is the steam ports right here. So these crossovers for the steam ports, on the factory on these trucks, the rear is blocked. Some of the very early GMT 800 trucks, I want to say, like, I don't know the exact year, I want to say like 99 to 02 or somewhere in that area, had a four-corner vent, which means that it would go back on the rear ports, and there was a metal line that connected it up to the front one. I don't know if it's just me, but I've seen a bunch of those things going for like 60-75 bucks, and I haven't had time to go to the junkyard, and I actually don't think that they fit with this style of intake manifold on this truck because of the way the ribs and stuff are underneath in between the runners. You could probably clearance the manifold and make them fit, but again, I don't have one, so I came up with this, and I'm calling this the poor man's four-corner. So if you notice, I just have 2 front ones, and it will bolt in back there. It does take a little bit of bending to get this to clear just right, and it does just clear that head bolt right there. It's hard to see, but it does clear that head bolt. The rubber is just touching the valley bolt, but as you can see, I can still move it, and the metal line is not touching, so that's not going to rub or anything. So what I've done is spent about 20 bucks down at the local parts store and got some hose and a T-fitting, basically. A pack of T-fittings. They didn't have just singles, unfortunately, so I'm sure I'll find something else to do with the other ones eventually. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply run a hose off of the back one up along the fuel rail and put a T right in this area where this vent line runs up to the radiator, and then it'll be tied together, and that's going to be poor man's four-corner cooling. I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. Okay, so just to give you a better idea what I'm talking about, I went ahead and installed the hose back there. You can see this is going to run right up alongside of the intake manifold, and I got my T-fitting in here. I'm usually not a fan of these spring clamps, but being it's going to be back there, I don't want to have to deal with coolant leaks and tightening up screw clamps because the hose settles, so that's going to put constant tension on it and I won't have to mess with it. So basically right here, I'm just going to cut the stock line where it goes onto that. Just cut it or split it or cut a little section out depending on how it fits, and then I'll just simply tap that in there, and bam, you've got a nice, easy, pretty cheap four-corner cooling. Yes, I'm well aware you could go to the junkyard and try and get one of the other ones from an early truck, but I don't have one. I have to cut up or trim the intake manifold a little bit, and I just don't feel like doing that. This does fit. I test fitted it with the engine out of the truck, so I could see back there a little better, and this does fit around the intake manifold with a couple of slight little bends in it. So cheap, easy solution, because you can't give away these 2-port steam vent deals, so I literally had an extra one laying around. So, in continuing on with the ultimate cooling upgrades, we're going to be talking about some fan upgrades for this thing. So I have my fans off of the truck right here laid out, and we're going to be changing the blades out. So what we currently have is a 5 and 5 setup. Earlier versions of this exact setup had a 5 and 7, but they were a rimmed fan. So I don't know, these I guess were a slight upgrade over the rimmed fans, these ones that do not have the rim. So I did, when I pulled this out, I thought this thing had a 5 and 7 combo in it. And so I spent a bunch of time then kind of wondering if I had the right fan motors. So GM initially lists, if you have a 5 and 7 combo, that it's the same motors as a 7 and 9. 7 and 9 would have been found on some higher power trucks, a factory 6.2 NHT. So NHT would have been the max tow package or max trailering package. That would have had a 7-9 fan blade combo, and I actually found out that hybrids also had the 7-9 combo. So if you had a 6-liter hybrid LFA code engine, those also did. But so we're going to be upgrading to something even better than that. So this is how I found out that the LFA, the hybrids, had a 7 and 9. So I picked this one up at the junkyard while I was scrolling around for some other stuff a while ago. But we're going to be going to 2 9 blades. So this is more than GM ever put in these trucks. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get more airflow through the radiator. So we've dropped the thermostat temp. We're doing that 4-corner steam port kit. And now we're going to be putting more fan in this. So I did a bunch of searching, and apparently if you have a late 5.5 combo with the fans without the rim, it supposedly is the same motors as what the 5.7 7.9 has. So hopefully we don't have any fan motor problems with this, but we're gonna find out. So as far as I know, because the earlier small fan combos had a, I think it was a 500 watt motor, and the others had a 700 watt. So basically there would be too much drag on the motor with the bigger fan blades, and we might wind up burning a motor up. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. If it does, then my mistake. But as far as I can tell, we have the bigger fan motors on this. So what we're gonna do is, this is really simple. We're just gonna pop the clips off, the fan pops off, put the new blade on there. I can get you all a part number for this fan, but you can also find it if you just go on like Rock Auto or something and punch in a 2010 to 2013 Silverado with a 6.2, and you go into the cooling fan blades, and you can find that 9-blade fan. I want to say it's 70 or 80 bucks or something like that at the time of filming this for that fan blade. But if you get lucky and you find some of these in the junkyard, I think this one was only 15 bucks or something, maybe 20. So good upgrade. I was going to be going to a 7-9 combo, but I'm glad that I got this because I thought I had a 7-blade in there already, and I do not. So I'm going to try and do this as smoothly as possible with one hand. That could get a little bit challenging, but we might have to set you up. Alright, so these motors have just 3 little teeth sticking out basically, and you will then just put the new fan on that, so you can see they lock in like so, and then they just have a little clip holding them on there. So it's as simple as popping the old ones off and popping the new ones on. You got to make sure that you get everything lined up. So I'm going to set it like so. So when I go down on, it should slip right into place. easier said than done. And just like that, it's in place. Now you knock your clip back in. And just that simple, super easy upgrade. You have two 9-blade fans. So everything clears, everything fits. So there's no differences in the shrouds, there's no differences hopefully in the motors. Pop those old blades off, pop the new ones on, and now we have a whole lot more airflow even than GM put in these trucks for the max tow package or trailing package. So we should have no problems, I hope, keeping this thing cool, even with a stock radiator in there, just with the thermostat and the fan upgrade, and then some tuning to bring those fans in to match the new thermostat.
So enter another part of cooling system upgrades for the truck. I have driven this thing around for 1,500 miles, I don't know, something like that. Since we first did all the initial cooling upgrades, the truck does okay. It doesn't stay where I would like it to. Now, it's not saying there's anything grossly wrong. When you're sitting in traffic for a while idling, the temp will creep. Like it'll go up to 210 normally. And this is actually watching sensor data, not just the gauge on the dash, which is fine. I would ideally like it to run a little cooler than that, but my problem is if it sits in traffic for a while, the fans are screaming, and that radiator just can't keep up. Sitting at idle in traffic, it's hot. We're in Florida, so this thing, you know, it's 95 to 100 degrees, very humid, and it gets warm. It'll get up to 220, 222 I've seen sitting in traffic. I'm not happy with that, not with the fan screaming full blast. Now when you get moving, it will cool down, but just sitting here, it'll run the fans as hard as it can to try and keep it in the 205, 210 area. My big problem with that is it shouldn't have to work that hard, and also if I am towing in traffic, it's not going to keep up, because you're going to generate more heat in the transmission and the engine, all that stuff. So enter my next upgrade here is we're going to put a new radiator in it. Part of the reason I determined it was a radiator is infrareding. You come over to the hot side here and to the cold side, this thing's only shedding after it gets all the way up to operating temp. It's only shedding maybe 20 degrees across the core. And I did kind of blow some air through it before when we did the engine. It's not that it's dirty inside, outside, it just can't keep up. So enter my new upgrade, and you're saying there's two of them here. I ordered one, came in damaged. I gotta get this one sent back. Summit was awesome. They sent me another one next day because I gotta get this thing back together. So that one's damaged, here's the new one, but we bought a Mishimoto radiator, and I looked around. I was thinking about a cold case. Those might be good. They had some so-so reviews, and I really just wasn't trying to deal with modifying anything. I just wanted it to drop in and roll. So I went with the Mishimoto. One of the reasons is their whole lifetime warranty deal. If anything happens to it, just send it back, they'll give you another one or whatever. So that was part of the deal there, but you can see how much thicker the core is. I'll do a comparison when I pull this one out of the truck there, but the core is about twice as thick in this. The other benefit is the nice aluminum end tanks. These plastic tanks on these trucks are known for cracking eventually, so hopefully that will help out. It does seem like they put better oil coolers in it for the transmission and the engine oil, so hopefully it'll bring those temps down a little bit too. Trans temps are not really an issue anymore with the big Derail 40K style cooler that's on there. It runs like 150s. I think I've seen 160 a couple times when I'm, you know, horsing around if we're in traffic or something like that, but it'll drop down pretty quick. So we're gonna put a big Mishimoto radiator in there and try and get those temps back down, so we'll have all the cooling system then. So anyway, I'm gonna quit blabbing. We're gonna get back to work here. All right, so next update is I got the radiator out. Motor is basically back together. You've seen the balancer go on. I got the valve train back in, stuff like that. Anyway, update is cooling system. So said we're going to be upgrading radiator. Got the stock one out for you to have a good comparison. So you can see stock one, plastic tanks, fairly thin core, is only like an inch, and then the Mishimoto, much thicker core, basically twice the core size of the stock one. And then you got the nice fabricated aluminum end tanks, which hopefully will mean no tank cracks or anything like that in the future. You do have to reuse your mounting hardware, so the rubber pieces right here and there, as well as the little feet on the bottom, they don't really snap onto this radiator, so I just have them stuck down in the radiator support down there. Comes with all the fittings and everything in it. Looks like it's about as drop-in as you could wish for, so hopefully it actually does. So we're gonna throw that in there and finish putting the front together, get the water pump on, and get this thing running.
Alrighty guys, just give you a finishing update on the truck. So I got everything wrapped up on the cooling system, on the oil pump. So as far as the radiator is concerned, truck runs so much cooler now. I shouldn't say that much cooler, but it floats right around 190 degrees all the time now. It doesn't really creep at a stoplight anymore. If it does, it gets to like the upper 190s, and that's about it. Whereas before, if we would sit at a light for a while, this thing would creep up to like 220, and that's a little warmer than what I wanted to see. So super happy with that Mishimoto radiator. As long as everything else keeps doing what it's doing, we're going to be in some good shape there. So yeah, super happy with the radiator upgrade. That's been great. The truck seems to, I know it's dumb, but it seems to actually run a little bit better, not being so heat soaked all the time. So it's a little bit peppier. So that's been a good upgrade. It's definitely going to be great for when we're towing and when we're using this thing. I'm not going to really have too many concerns at this point now of being able to keep coolant temps under control when I am working this thing. So that's going to be awesome. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.